Mike from around the world. Let me plug in the thing, Mike. Hang on a second. I'm trying to calm down here. Mike, are you there?
I am right here. Can you hear me?
I hear you now. Yes, Mike.
Is it good?
It's good.
Is it okay?
Sounds great.
All right. All right.
You think we can get through tonight without the powers that be shutting us down?
You know what? They're going to start having issues doing that. So I'm not worried about that.
Okay, you're going to turn the Lord on them, aren't you?
I'm going to put them on. They're on notice right now.
Okay, thank you.
They're on notice.
Well, Mike, great to have you here tonight, and I know that this is a difficult thing for me to understand. A bombing of a nuclear plant, the largest in Europe. 6 reactors. Thank you so much, Kevin. The 6 reactors are melting down. I mean, excuse me, there's 6 reactors there. One is on fire right now. One is on fire. Mike, what is the condition of this nuclear plant, and what does this all mean?
Well, right now, they're not designed to a sustained missile fire, and that is a BN-600 reactor that was hit. At present, it does not look good. Here's number one, they only have one active pumping unit going, right? That's a big issue. Those reactors require water, continuous feed of water.
Right.
If the water stops, it's over. In any reactor, if the water stops, it's over. The only thing that saved Fukushima was they flooded the entire rod chamber. That's the only thing that saved it. But in this case, they have water coming in, but if the pumps stop, and based on how it's made, this is a BN-600, the BBER reactor. It cannot sustain itself that way. So it has redundancy. The problem is all the redundant pumps are in the same location. So it was never designed for combat or any of those things. If this one pump goes out, it's going to start melting down. We're going to have about, it'll be one of these chambers in this thing, right? If it melts down, it'll be, I think the recent calculations from some of the folks who actually engineered that area is going to be about, I believe it's 15 times what Chernobyl put out.
What? Whoa,
That's
whoa,
one of the chambers. That's just one of the chambers. So, yeah, you're looking at a problem that could turn into an enormous issue and Putin is not letting emergency services in there because those, I'm not going to call them mainline Russian troops either, but we'll get to that. But these soldiers on the Russian side they keep firing. So they're not allowing people to get in there and do what they have to do. So actually the clock is ticking on that reactor.
Yeah. What would it do if it starts to melt down? Will it explode?
Oh, my. No. What happens is the rods sit in a tank, right? Those control rods sit in a tank. And these rods are lowered in the water.
Yep.
And when the rods heat up, when they want the rods to get hotter, the water to get hotter, they lift the rods out a little bit. They lower them and raise them. Well, what that does is generate hot water, right? And that circulates throughout the system. They utilize all that heat exchange for turbines.
Yeah.
In this case, that's a direct supply to people. That one is. If all of it hinges upon fresh water, fresh, cool water coming in, right? You're looking at water that comes in, 1 second. In less than 2 seconds, that same water is at 170, 200 degrees, something like that, right? So if the pumps go out for about a minute, you're in trouble. If they hit critical mass, if these uranium rods, if these purge units, these dip units hit critical mass, nothing can cool them off, nothing. And you're talking about a facility with a ton of chambers. Not only that, they have spent rods that they have to manage. Every nuclear power plant has spent rods they have to manage. Those rods, you really don't use them for anything, and so you have to maintain them by pumping, still cranking water through there, right? So there's going to be an issue if that last pump fails. Now, they had 6 systems that were damaged. 6. Only 1 is left. They're going to hurry about this. It could turn into a real crisis.
Well, how are they going to hurry when they're still shelling it, and the firemen trying to get to it, snipers were shooting them.
Now, believe it or not,
Yeah.
believe it or not, that fire can keep burning. That's not really going to affect. That's going to affect the building or something like that. But the facility itself is below ground level, right? They always, all your pumps, your condensers, turbines, your circulation pumps, all that stuff is below the water line.
We have
so
breaking.
they build it like that purposely.
Mike, real quick, we have breaking news just coming in right now that Senator Lindsey Graham on Fox News, live on the air, has just called for the assassination of President Vladimir Putin. Okay.
Oh boy, not a good idea.
No, and he just said it live.
You know
on
what
the
they've
air.
been advised, Pastor Paul? They've been advised. Here's what's so bad about this. Here's what's so bad. And you know what? All of us have to be careful of this because it's once you start seeing the inside of what's actually happening over there, it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all.
No.
And I mean, I have multiple direct contacts over there that I've been in contact with for years, and so that situation is not good. Anyway,
let me play
here's
this.
the issue.
Let me play this right now, Mike, and then I'll come back.
Go
to
ahead.
you.
Go ahead, Pastor. Go ahead.
1 second. Here we go from
That situation is not good.
How does this end?
Anyway,
Somebody in Russia.
Let me play
here's
this.
the issue.
Step up to
Let me
the
play
plate.
this right now, Mike,
Is
and then
there
I'll come back.
Brutus
to you.
Go ahead, Pastor.
Here,
Go ahead.
Is there more
1 second. Here we go
successful
from
that
Colonel
situation is not
And
good.
how does this end?
Anyway,
Somebody in Russia.
Let me play
here's
this.
the
Okay. 1 second, Mike. 1 second. Okay.
okay.
All right. Go ahead. Let's start that over. Here we go.
In Russia has to step up to the plate. Is there Brutus in Russia? Is there a more successful Colonel Stauffenberg in the Russian military? The only way this ends, my friend, is for somebody in Russia to take this guy out. You would be doing your country a great service and the world a great service. How does this end?
Okay. So, Mike, it's not a smart move to say that live, but that is one of our leading senators. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that's an issue. Here's why. Everybody should remember all the people who crossed Putin, who died since he was president. Putin has actually been directly involved in the death of hundreds of people by poisonings, by gassings, by accidents. Anybody who's fell out of favor with Putin meant they died. He just died from center. He has reach in all countries. It's not very good of him to say because Russians are in every single country and there are Russian loyalists who are with Putin in every single country. And that puts us at risk. That puts Europe at risk. And when I'm talking, these folks are experts. Right now, we're not talking about somebody who works for the bank. No, we're talking about somebody who sits on the board for the bank. We're not talking about somebody who's one of the engineers in a nuclear facility. We're talking about the main guy that runs that nuclear facility or somebody who's in charge of security coordination or most of these high-tech fields. We're talking about folks in networking and everything else. When they're stoking the fire because they're losing their cool, right?
Yeah.
They don't understand the concept. They're dealing with men. They're just dealing with men who have different ideologies, who do things in their own. Putin has a history of this. The problem is Putin has done so much that people have given him a pass. They deny it, like it didn't exist, like he didn't kill all those people, like he didn't use sound weapons against those folks. And there's some things people don't know about Russia. Putin has directly ordered the death of quite a few people. That's just him. That's the way he does, right? That's the way the Russian people do. But they're just men. They're just men. It's not about being, in this case, it's not about a person being I wouldn't say, just totally evil or totally good. They're just men trying to work with that paradigm that they've been given, and they're going to do what they have to do. But, to put this on a personal level, to call for the assassination of another president of a country, right, when they were just negotiating about an hour ago to renegotiate talks with this guy. And then for him to say that just threw a monkey wrench in it because that's when the Congress does not respect world leaders, despite what they're doing, right? Because at this point right now, the true facts are we have dead Russians, we have dead Ukrainians, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that have been displaced. There's a lot of things going on, but it's not like nobody knew this was going to happen, right? That's why
Right.
the Ukrainian army was put in place in the first place, because they knew at some point he would challenge their statehood, and he's going to get that land back no matter what. He needs that seaport to the Black Sea, but
Oh, now let me ask. Let's back to the nuke then. And we'll talk about him trying to get that seaport. He's about ready to take another city. He's got his eyes on Odessa. But let me ask you, with this nuclear plant now, if they don't get it under control, if the water pumps stop and it starts to melt down, there's no coming back. What will this do to the land? Because this is the breadbasket of the world. This is where 30%.
it's going to be no good. That whole place will be desolate. What they'll have to do is blow it in place. They're going to have to set some incineration, some of those, let's just call it, it's like an incineration device. Imagine a device that hits the ground, right? It blows up, and for about a half a mile outward, everything melts and goes into the earth. That's what he'll have to do. And he'll have to probably set a couple of those off. Right? They do. I just don't like talking about those weapons. That's something a lot of people don't know about, because that could actually hit a city and that whole city would sink into molten stuff. So anyway, they would have to do that. It's a last resort. China has the ability to do that also, but that's a last resort. Nobody really wants to do that, because those things are devastating.
Oh yeah.
But if that takes place, though, it ruins. That's going to ruin Putin's his internal proposition he has in his own head of gaining certain assets in the Ukraine. So I really can't see him allowing it to go but so far. Could it melt down? Yes. Could it go into meltdown status and they send folks in there to save it? Yes, they're trained to do that. They have an entire brigade that is trained, right, to concrete an active reactor. So yeah, he could do that. He could most certainly do that. But given what the countries are doing, Pastor Paul, every day they're giving him no way out. They're pushing him in a corner. I don't believe he counted on all of this happening. I don't believe that. I believe that he thought that the USA was just going to sit back and do nothing. But check this out. It's so funny, and all of this will come out in hindsight. Fast step Biden, right? Because he's a fast stepper, not make fun of anything. He's a fast stepper.
Right.
But anyway, he's been doing a lot in the background on this one, right? He cut off Putin's his plan was just messed up by the U.S., which makes him real mad at the U.S. That's why he's been calling the U.S. evil and this, that, and the other, because Putin's standing with the U.S. was not what he thought it was. Number one, it wasn't. His support in his own country is not what he thought it was.
It's eroding fast. It's eroding.
Right. But here's what he did. The troops you see in the Ukraine, those are not mainline troops.
Where are they from?
No, those are kind of like our reservists.
Okay.
That's what they are. See, he's not stupid. He's not stupid at all. His elite forces, right? They're nowhere near that.
He's holding them back, isn't he?
There's no special forces there. These are troops who are, they're trained to take care of the homeland in a specific way, kind of like our National Guard or something like that. Not that the National Guard here is not trained. It's just that they're not the folks who have the extensive combat experience. They don't drill 24 hours a day.
So when the bunch that he sent in out of Belarus, when we're getting reports, this was like guys just out of boot camp. They thought they were going on another drill. He kind of just threw them out there. They were kind of, I hate to use the word expendable, but he was holding back his better guys for later.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the other side of what's about to come in there now, which is some of the forces in Belarus, about 5,000 more troops are on the march. They're on the move right now. So they will be entering into the Ukraine to secure certain borders. That's what he's been waiting on. Not for his soldiers. He can do that in a heartbeat, but he's saving that for NATO, because NATO, he already found out that NATO promised something. They're starting to brag too much. And when they brag, it always happens this way. They brag. The French, they did this before. They get overzealous, and all of a sudden they start advertising all their plans, right? You can't advertise what you're about to do. You just have to go ahead and do it, explain to the people later, because you lose your tactical advantage. But this is the world of where everybody likes the media and everything else. Unfortunately, it's not going to end well for anybody. There's going to be no winners out of this. There won't be, because if, for example, if Putin is pushed back out of the Ukraine for some reason, right, by overwhelming force of who? NATO, right? A combined force of NATO. For example, tonight they're sending what they have scores of drones that have been on station. They're armed, right? They can do something, but they have not entered the battle yet. The Ukrainians have not utilized all their weaponry yet. They haven't. Munitions are coming in from everywhere, going straight into Ukraine. And I hate to tell everybody, but all that's going to do is empower some military force no one is counting on. You don't send a bunch of munitions to a place like that when it's not under your direct control. We learned this in history. When you do that, another army with another dictator of another country
rises
will always
up,
step in, infiltrate, and take it over.
Well, we've seen this in the Arab Spring when we left all this stuff and ISIS picked it up, and here come this bloody, horrific group. We've seen this before, and if we're not careful, we're going to have some weird militant dictator rise up who's got this on his mind to create this revolution. And he's got some of these incredible weapons that he can use on people, and so you're very upset about this. If you're going to send the material in, you're saying you got to send the troops in to know how to use them.
That's right. You got to have accountability,
yeah.
Right? Because in a wartime situation, if you lose a launch platform or something like that, it self-destructs. You don't put that into the enemy's hands. That's your tactical advantage. But in this case, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be handed over to just more folks. So this issue is just not good. This nuclear power plant it's not going to be the first time he's going to engage a facility like that. He's not. Right now, Putin will utilize within his discretion, anything he so desires. But he's waiting. He's waiting. There are lots of movements inside the country of Russia.
Look, can we look now? Let's look at this map, Mike. I'm putting it on the screen. I know there's a little delay for you, but it's not too long, I don't think. And I'm just putting up a map. This map actually was made about 11 hours ago. It kind of shows you the territory. I don't know. Tell me when you see it, Mike.
Do you have, does it show troop movements and all that good
stuff? No.
Yeah, it's a pretty good map. I can see it.
Okay, tell us what we see here and what this means.
Well, see those red zones?
Yeah.
You see those red zones? All right, those are occupied territories or engagement places of Russia. And you see what Russia is doing. Now, remember, the goal was supposed to be Kiev, correct?
Yeah.
The capital. That's what everybody believed. Wrong. He needs the Black Sea.
Yeah.
If he does not get the Black Sea, this whole campaign was for nothing. He needs absolute control of the Black Sea. Why? Why, though? Because he can effectively negotiate two things if he has the Black Sea. If he has control of this, and he has a lot of ships in those waters already, if he has control of this, he can contain, maintain, dictate, and control all resources going in and out. He can do that by himself. If he has control of this again, because what they did was when they lost large territories of Russia, right, other countries stepped in, but they set up shop in the Black Sea, right? They set up shop. They started to, take down all the barriers, this, that, and the other. It was all friendly. Everybody was happy, this, that, and the other. And some of the subports and everything else were utilized, but it has become a major trade place. Right? It's almost like a hub, like a UPS hub. Lots of things pour into this place, and they are distributed from there, right? So if he gets control of that again, look what he can control.
Well, he can control
what he can disrupt.
He can control the food, and not just the oil that he's trying to control coming out of Russia through Ukraine, but then he could control the food and all the trade into Europe, into
there you go.
All these nations.
That's right. That's right, because that's a control hub for a lot of products, lots of food, like you just mentioned. Not to mention there are valuable resources right in that area under the water and sitting in the middle of the Black Sea. And if he takes control of that, that's going to be, that's for his country. That's money for his country,
right?
Because he will build up. His mind is made up. He's going to do what he has to do. there's a backstory to why he has gone off the edge like this, right?
Okay.
But he's not going to change his mind because he knows he's not going to get assurances from NATO, right?
Right.
NATO has defaulted in too many things,
Do you think,
in their negotiations.
Yeah. Now, a couple things about NATO. First of all, do you think, though, that one last question on this nuclear plant, do you think that this nuclear plant was partially a decoy, a diversion, so that he can finish taking the Black Sea?
Well, it could be because he's surrounding the entire region right now, except for that. If you look in the upper
part of
northwest,
the map.
right?
Yeah,
Northwest,
yeah.
he's not there. He's not. Well, he has troops there, but he's not done anything there.
No,
right?
you're right. He doesn't have any.
That's at NATO. Right, that's a NATO. They call that the NATO window. Right, so he didn't do anything in that portion. So everybody's attention, if it's drawn to this nuclear facility, remember, he already has things on the move in Crimea. He already has things in Oblast. He's there too, and all these different places surrounding there. And the air superiority issue is about to alter itself too. So,
in what way, Mike? Tell us about that.
Well, they noticed the other night that radar coverage of the Ukraine was just killed. I mean, it was just killed. And then it returned. Now, what can kill a radar's coverage, that area like that? What could stop those NATO surveillance and Ukrainian surveillance like that? You have to have some type of new emission system, something China was working on about 12 years ago. China did something with their aircraft. It's very important to note here. Not only do they use their radar to see other craft out there, they can reverse the radar and send microwave emissions out of the radar for a quick burst to destroy electronics of aircraft. Russia obviously did the exact same thing with much more powerful radars. You're looking at a radar system with a ground station of power that can just do some real damage. And microwave energy, right? If it ever hits you like with a pulse, a burst like that, you could sit there, Pastor Paul, and you could start burning up from the inside out. Nobody would see any evidence that you're cooking, but you could cook. You're going to cook for a few seconds, and it really damages cells on the inside because you start cooking like that. Anyway, China perfected this. China has this in their Gen 5 and Gen 6 fighters. Right?
What? In their fighter jets?
That's right. They have them in their Gen 5 and 6. Notice
I
said
serious?
6 fighters. Yes.
That's putting lethal, beyond lethal, that's putting weapons of inhumane weapons in the hands of just normal, everyday fighter pilots. I mean, not some general over here that's got to call the shot. You're putting that decision making into these guys' hands.
But you know what, China doesn't. They don't categorize things like we do, right? If a person carries a sword, right?
Yeah.
He's given an order to do whatever they want him to do with that sword, but he better have that sword. So if a battalion has a nuclear weapon, normally in China, no one disobeys order due to complete loyalty. You don't really hear about the military breaking down as far as loyalty is concerned. You don't hear that.
No.
You just don't hear. That's not something you hear. Even in Russia, they have a lot of loyal troops. And they will not like what they're doing, but they will obey orders due to specific tactics. But basically that loyalty glue that's in there, which is why Russia has not sent in his mainline. They've not sent in any mainline troops yet. I have yet to see any equipment that's modern.
He's using all the old stuff.
I have not seen anything modern.
Is it possible, Mike, that he's using all the old stuff now because he knows he can take ground with the old stuff and the rookie soldiers over a period of time, look like he's weak? Is he baiting NATO because he's got other...
Well, think about it. He comes out with this equipment. Everybody's always, they start to form an opinion. He knows how social media works. He knows habits. This guy has a statistical mind, right? He didn't forget anything, like a photographic memory. If he saw a chart 20 years ago, Pastor Paul, he can recite that chart right now. That's who he is. That's who Putin is. So whatever he sees by way of patterns, right? Kind of like an autistic child or something like that. So he's not going to forget. He understands what makes people do what they do. And sure enough, true to his game he's playing over there, people are saying, oh, look at the Russian equipment. It's falling apart. They're making jokes of it and everything else.
Right.
That's
I hear those
precisely
jokes.
what he wants. It's precisely
Yeah.
what he wants.
Yeah.
He sent those newbie soldiers over there, the untrained ones, the reservists, the ones that don't have all the good training.
Right.
The Ukrainians are starting to, they're bolstering, they're starting to do that brag and bolstering thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is a no-go. You don't do that in a situation like that. And then when he brings out the real troops, because NATO is sending over some heavy weapons now. I know that Macron has not activated or not made that deal yet. Nevertheless, NATO is sending over some big weapons.
Okay, now let me ask you a question about that. When you get into NATO, Emmanuel Macron announced today that he's getting ready to meet with his European Union nations on March 10th and 11th, and he talks about he would like to have an EU army. Do we need an EU army when you got NATO already?
NATO's not unified to that level yet. The army assures unity, right?
Okay.
If you have individual nations without any sign, because they have to sign their paperwork, right?
Yeah.
They can't even drink coffee without signing the release form or something like that. That's the way they operate. They got a piece of paper to sign for everything. But until they sign that, until they get everybody on the same page and legally bind them to following whoever's going to give the orders out there.
Right.
They can't do anything because it'll be a breakdown in the chain of command and everything else. It'll all go to, it's happened before. And it happened last week. There was a breakdown. Nobody was sure exactly what sanctions to put on Putin. Right.
Yeah.
And but so they threw them all at him. Macron was the same one that said, we're going to bankrupt your country. That's what he said. Yeah. That was also quite brazen. Here's my issue with this. Right. These same, and people ought to take note of this because we are in the last days.
Yes.
And this is what really gets me. Now, I'm sitting here looking at these guys making these comments. I follow what they do. I can hear what they do. Yet we are, we're Christians. Right. Now, guaranteeing your audience, you'll have on occasion this fight between the Ukraine and Russia. Well,
yeah.
Putin is a good person and wholesome and virtuous. And the Ukrainian leaders, the same thing. Listen, both these guys are somewhat selfish, number one. Both these guys have issues, number two, right?
Yep.
Ukraine is not innocent, nor is Russia.
No.
This is something the Father in heaven is doing. Just like when Pharaoh told Moses, your people are not going to go free, it's because God hardened Pharaoh's heart.
Right.
That's why. If God hadn't hardened his heart, Pharaoh would have said, let them go.
Right.
But every time Moses went there, God hardened his heart. God also worked with the biggest tyrant that was ever on the face of the earth, and that was King Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes.
This guy was a butcher, right?
Yep.
But God utilized him to save his people from a corrupt power. He used the Assyrian to save his people from a corrupt government. And the Lord is working. Again, nothing is going to happen on the face of the earth of magnitude until the Lord says it's okay. But the Christians, what's happening to them if they're not careful with this battle? Now, we know in the end days, Pastor Paul, the big battles come.
Right.
The big ones. Right? And so everything that we're starting to see here, they're all little tiny footprints leading up to the big one. Right?
That's
They're
right.
going to become quite significant, and over a certain amount of time, the entire world is going to be engaged in combat. There's no way out of that. But if Christians are not careful, they're going to start taking sides. They're going to start rooting for something they cannot see the spirit of. Right?
Yes.
They can't see the spirit of Putin. They can't see the spirit of anybody out there. And so what we need to understand is that the Lord will utilize whom he utilizes to bring about his prophecy. This is his earth. We are his creation, right?
Yeah, you said, he used Nebuchadnezzar. He used the king of Persia. He used Cyrus.
Yes, he did.
He's used the Assyrian, as you said earlier. He used Pharaoh. He has done this in the past. So it's in his power. He establishes kings. He sets them in place. He takes them out of place. Right. So God is in control, and prophecy.
He's the creator, right? The creator of all things, Pastor. But a lot of people they use that. It's very distracting, right? Especially when you get into the meat. But the Lord will give, Pastor. I guarantee you, the Lord's working with you. I can already tell because you got a little fire back there. You can't hardly hold back. But as it comes out, have you noticed when it's about to come out? When the Holy Spirit is working, organizing things, here comes a distractor. Now, they may not know they're doing it, but what
Right.
I'm telling people is this: take your faith out of men and put it back in the living God.
Amen.
Don't have anybody to sit in his seat. And we got to get away from, oh, we need this guy or that. No, we don't need that guy or that guy either. We need
Right.
more of Christ.
Amen.
Because none of these guys are going to do anything the Lord would do, right?
That's
They're
right.
not going to do anything the Lord would do. But they are just men. That's why we intercede. We know sometimes they operate by wickedness. Sometimes they don't. But we don't know when, right?
Right.
And so that's why we intercede by praying. We have the most powerful weapon in our mouths and in our hearts if we would just utilize it, right?
That's
like
right.
the Ukrainians, even they, I'm sitting there watching this. And they staged this, but this is staged. I know this for a fact. They took the Jews, some old senior citizen Jews, and this is staged. That's the only reason I'm saying this. And they were holding up signs saying, Putin, go die. Putin this. And they did this. This was not on any conservative channel.
No.
That was on a liberal channel, on a very specific one, and they set it up. Believe me, I know when they set something up.
Yeah.
They had signs up there, right? In little, but they'll use anything to cause people to go after each
Yeah,
other. And
they will.
who does it affect the most? Christians.
Yep.
Not the unbelievers. It doesn't affect them. It affects us because it gets us off balance. We start taking sides of beasts in the earth.
Yeah.
When I read the Bible, Pastor Paul, every nation out there was a beast except Israel. Israel's the only nation God never equated to a beast.
Yeah, I know. That is
It's the only
true.
one.
It's true. That is true. All right, Mike, we're going to shift gears for a minute here because there's a report that just came out today. And we'll go to the map here. Dangerous, because you're the one that's been telling us about watch California. Look out for, San Diego. Dangerous San Andreas fault line could cause greater earthquakes than first thought, warned scientists in a new study. According to this report, the San Andreas fault line in California may be capable of producing much larger earthquakes than previously believed. The findings were published in the journal Geology and found that earlier assumptions about the scale of possible earthquakes produced by the fault line were underestimated. And according to research, scientists previously believed that the central section of the fault produced less severe earthquakes than other sections of the fault. However, the study's authors concluded that the large magnitude earthquakes are possible in the area and have happened in the past. The San Andreas Fault is an 800-mile stretch through California where the Pacific and North American tectonic plates meet. The fault runs through north of San Francisco to San Diego.
Oh, and that's something.
And so you've been talking about this a while. We just had an earthquake in Mexico today, right along this fault line. It was almost a 6.0. We've been seeing quite a few. In Southern California, has been having quake after quake after quake. No big ones, so nobody writes about it, but the numbers of them are a lot. Mike, what's going on here? Are we getting a warning here?
I would say that's one of those random articles that comes out that, people, they really won't get it until they go into the peer-reviewed journals and begin to read about it. But what are they saying? They're saying that we have a problem, right? There's a big problem, and that problem will not go away. And they're finding trigger points also. They're catching up to us. So we're going to go some steps further. But here we are again. I can't get away from what the Lord showed me. Right? I can't do that. Data is now backing that up big time because everybody thought that the major trouble was going to happen north of that, right? Not
right.
Certainly not in that area, but we're right there in the area of concern for me. And then Mexico is starting to have more and more big earthquakes. I know for a fact Chile and Haiti are about to. Boy, it's not going to look good for them. But when that coast plate cracks. There we are. We're at the beginning of a process that really is going to consume a lot. But so there are telltale signs to these things, Pastor Paul. People are going to start smelling the gases again. And to my knowledge, that's already beginning.
Let me ask you, because I of course, I need to interview you for the webinar maybe Saturday if we can, because I gotta leave town, and I'm going to be on a couple television shows, and I got to leave town. So is there any way I can interview you Saturday for the webinar?
Yes, we can get that done.
Okay, we'll let Heidi communicate that with you. All right, Mike, here's the thing. I just interviewed Marshall Masters, this week for the webinar. And I'm not going to share everything he said, but he did bring up a very important point that I thought I really probably should run by you today. He said there is a fault that's running into the Caribbean islands. And that fault line comes and it does a circle around the entire Caribbean island area. And he said that's why you'll notice you're seeing tons of quakes in Puerto Rico, Haiti's, Haiti's always in a danger zone there, Dominican Republic.
Yep.
And he said there's something about a North American rift.
Yep.
And that they connect. Is that? Can you tell us more about this?
Well, those are your cracks in the crust of the earth. That's what they are. Weak points in the crust of the earth. And if you crack something, if you tear a piece of paper in a straight line, you have two halves, right?
Yeah.
If that same tear were to make a U-turn and go back up, right? If you tug on one part of that paper at the bottom, it's going to pull away from the top half. And so what he's saying is that these fault line he just described, it is connected, right? It's connected all the way over. So in fact, a Haiti earthquake, it always follows with a Chilean earthquake, always. And then that always follows with a California earthquake and an Alaskan earthquake. Right? Always. It always happens that way. Once you start to see these, if somebody were to take a computer, go back about 20 years in earthquake data, right? Start parsing the data as far as to make those connections, they would see a clear pattern of vibration that works in the physics model. It works in a physics model. So basically, you can model the fault lines with a computer. We have the tools there and everything. But all these that is to say, one place is not going to escape when another person has an earthquake. And if it goes over a certain level, right? Because they're talking about, I don't know what they say the highest value. I don't know if they've told people what the highest value of an earthquake we could experience.
They said it's 8 point or higher, 8 to 8.5 in the Caribbean
California.
island.
So what would you call a land shift? What would you call a land shift? And basically, in that subduction zone, if part of that land fell down in a gaping hole, right?
Yeah.
And then the land covered over the tip of it, it would flip the entire landmass up.
Yeah.
And I believe that's what's going to happen now. The Coast Coast Plate is the key to this whole system. And guess what? They have a problem. All right, here's the first problem. Dead cooked fish are showing up on the Chilean coast.
What?
Dead cooked fish. All right, they're finding too much sea life, fully cooked, showing up on the beaches.
I mean,
we're not talking about small fish. We're talking about some big ones.
I mean,
right?
I like some salmon, when it's done well and stuff. But I don't want this. So what's causing that, Mike? I mean, is that the underground magma?
The same thing, Pastor, where the pumice was washing up on the Japanese shores. Same thing. Pumice comes from a volcano. That. These are ejections from the ocean floor, and the ocean floor is so active that if it were visible to everybody would go on their knees. They would say, this is it, this is the end. But we're not going to be sheltered like this for long, because we're entering into a very destabilizing time, let's put it that way. Not only geologically, and the fires are a big deal. They've already begun. This whole year is going to be by the way, just so you know, they're compensating with the fires. They've already said extreme fires are the new normal.
No.
That's their statement, not mine. That's their statement, not mine. So they know what's coming, right? They know what's coming. But the fires, the storms, but in addition to that, Pastor, we're going to start having some sizable earthquakes. Sizable.
This year?
Okay, not the small ones. We're talking about sizable earthquakes. What this will expose, a lot of people will begin to notice we've got more fault lines than what they thought were charted. Right, like in the U.S. alone, we have they're finding new fault lines on a yearly basis. Right, okay. The U.S. has 4 fault lines on the East Coast.
Yeah.
In the Midwest, they found 7 more. 7 more. One fracture is already beginning, so that would include 8. We're not talking about from fracking or drilling from oil, because these cracks are too deep. And then, of course, on the West Coast, you have these many fault lines that go along with the San Andreas fault, but you have some out to sea. What could happen? One of the faults out to sea could give way, which would relieve pressure, right, on the San Andreas fault, which would have the opposite effect. The land would clearly open up, right? It would open up and swallow everything in there. It would also fill up with seawater. And if that were the case, you have larger segments of the U.S. that will be underwater in about 24 hours' time if that took place. Now, the land this year is moving much more than normal. Much more than normal. The land itself is moving. It's kind of like some of these places that are covered over with glaciers, with ice. Hint, hint. They're swelling too much.
What?
Too much. They're swelling too much. And well, we don't need that, because we've had places that actually swole up, and they cause quite a few issues for everybody on the face of the earth. So think about Iceland, right? Think about Iceland for a minute. Think about that entire area being engulfed.
There's big, huge ice glaciers breaking off. I saw a house going out there with it. Iceland, what's going on up there?
Yeah, it's also a monster volcano out there too.
Oh, I know.
Monster volcano.
I know.
And then this thing is starting to wake up, right?
Yeah.
You get up to places like Norway, and right there in the ocean path is another big monster. It's waking up. So you have all this ice melting off as a result of the crust continuing its heat process. Why? Because we're being inundated with radiation. This is also the year where people will start to get sick for no reason. I mean, nauseated, stomach sick, taste buds will start to change. People are going to suffer dehydration more than normal. And all that due to inbound radiation, which is cumulative. No one will escape that.
Hang on a second. We're going to fix my, whoops. I got a table that all of a sudden started going down, way down. A chair that went down. I don't even know what's going on here.
Not a sinkhole, is it?
I got you, Pastor.
Yeah, I'm in Florida. It is possible. Now this chair also went. Just went down. Then the table went down. So hang on. It's not a sinkhole. Can you pump that thing up too?
You need it up?
Yeah.
Here, why don't you sit?
So you sure?
You need it up a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I don't. It just the level of it raised.
I told you not to touch that.
I didn't touch it.
Try that. Touch nothing. You say nothing.
My chair went down. My table went down. Mike said it wasn't a sinkhole, was it?
Hang on.
All right. Thank you for straightening me out here. Appreciate it, Jeffrey. Appreciate it. Sorry about that, Mike. Maybe it was a sinkhole. I am in Florida, you know.
Possibility.
Okay. Always possible. All right. I'll be careful. All right. Well, anyway, you never know what's going to happen when you're doing live broadcasting. So, Mike, all right. So, having said all these things, you know, I have to throw this out there, and I hate to. But before I do, I'm going to save this question for last. The solar wave. Are we getting hit with more and more waves of energy, or is this solar shock waves? What's going on? I don't think we're getting the whole story here.
The sun responds by what affects it. The sun has greater forces out there that always feed it, right?
Yeah.
Think of the sun as a little bitty baby, and there's a big monster out there feeding that baby. It's going to become painfully obvious to a lot of people. Trust me, Pastor Paul, when people begin to see things in the heavens, there's no going back. Now, one condition I'm not looking forward to, but folks ought to get themselves acclimated as fast as possible. The heat, I know a lot of people say they love heat. They're not going to like this heat. This heat begins this year, right? And
yes.
In fact, I would give it another 2 weeks or week, maybe a week. And as the jet stream alters just a bit, people are going to notice that the sun is so incredibly intense. If NASA and the European Space Agency had to, and Elon Musk, when he activated Starlink the other day,
yeah,
they found out that the sun, its emissions have caused their calculations on the solar panels to be way off. The sun is generating a lot of power. So that's a photonic transfer that is off the scales. It's being fed by something external, right? So no one should be surprised of a magnitude change of the sun's brightness coming up this year, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to be, nobody will miss this because this will happen multiple times. Think about it, Pascal, you're in the middle of the night, right?
Okay.
You
Yeah.
wake up maybe 12 midnight. All of a sudden you walk outside and it's daytime for
No.
about
Wait,
7 to 8 minutes. And then
Mike.
all of a sudden it goes dark again.
You're telling me that I'm away midnight. We're gonna have a 7 or 8 minute period where we have like almost like daylight.
That'll happen multiple times. That's not going to happen just one time. That's not going to be a one-off. This is going to happen multiple times.
Well, what's causing that? I mean, what's
You have external, but we're going into a place, right? If they would actually share, number one, how our solar system travels, right? The truth of it. Then people would get a proper perspective on what the situation is, because we're kind of like a tumbling, rotating bullet going through space, right? Our entire solar system is. But where we're headed is a very active and dense part of creation. It's very dense and it's very old. So we're going into a kind of like, you could say, a junkyard, right?
Yeah.
A junkyard. And the Earth, this whole system travels really fast. So it's going to come upon us pretty quick. In fact, they're already having issues with optics with some of their new technology they put out there that they spent billions of dollars on. And they found out that the density ratios are way off. They didn't compensate for the density of particles that will be out there. And we know we have this year that we're in right now, we're going to have a disturbance in our asteroid belt, which will affect Earth yet again. In a type of a minor storm, I'm going to call it a minor storm, and the reason why is because we have larger things coming. The heat factor, all of this, right? It's going to become painfully obvious that something is different in the heavens, something's different in the sky.
Right.
Now, in the meanwhile, while all this is happening, we're still having geomagnetic changes in the Earth, Pastor Paul. And believe me, it's affecting biology big time. It is really affecting biology. One of the issues I tend to look at is they're losing bone density.
Yeah,
They're just losing it.
Yeah, Heidi told me that there's more and more and more people whose bone density is they're getting more fragile. They're getting more.
Master, that's a.
What's that? Is that lack of vitamin D, or is that radiation?
That's increased exposure to X-rays, to gamma rays, and the Earth right now is pulsing out gamma rays. Here's what I mean by pulse, right? Because we're talking about a time scale of about a month. Some of the gamma ray bursts that are coming from within the Earth are quite enormous. The Earth is emitting gamma rays. It's starting to emit. We're not talking about normal levels of gamma rays. We're talking about lots of gamma rays. The sun is producing more just terrible X-rays are coming through our atmosphere because the atmosphere is changing.
Is this part of the effects?
Is altering.
Is this part of the effects of Planet X? I mean, really? Is this a changing the molecular makeup of our atmosphere?
Well, it's just like, think of it this way. It's kind of when the atmosphere thins, right? It's going to be like a microwave on high. That's what it will be like.
Oh, okay.
In fact, it'll be so bad, Pastor Paul, that there will come a time. Now, I don't know when this time is coming. It's coming soon, but there will come a time with microwaves when people will have to go into their homes.
Yeah.
And they cannot let sunlight touch them.
Because it'll scorch them.
That's going to be the key. Sunlight cannot touch them.
It's
so
in the Bible.
See people taping up the windows and all this kind of stuff because they don't want the sunlight to penetrate through. Because if the sunlight gets in, it'll start burning things. Right? It's going to act just like a microwave. A microwave burn is not instantaneous, but takes a couple seconds or whatever, and then it cooks whatever it touches. The sun will do that. So if it's touching your desk, it's going to cook it, burn it up. This is going to take place. Everything in the earth is changing. Yeah. And you know what? I'm really convinced that people are not ready due to this response to the Ukraine. They're not ready because when the Christians never fight again over something external, when they never allow anything to break up their families, that is not from the families, then they might be ready. But there's too much. There's so much doubt. People don't know who to trust.
No.
Pastor Paul, and you tell them to pray all the time.
I do.
And listen, I have heard scientists. Right?
Yeah.
I've heard scientists. I talk with scientists a lot, experts, all this, that, and the other. I work in certain fields, but I don't trust what they could be standing right there in front of my face. I do not trust them. I don't trust them.
You don't trust
Even
science.
if I saw a NASA satellite track an asteroid, and they said it was heading for New York City,
Right.
I would not trust that either. I don't. I've seen too many things that have proven even this factual stuff that we believe in can be altered just like with a snap of a finger. And it does happen as though it's not time for these big things
So
to take
is
place.
God,
That's how it's been.
Is God saying, no, wait, and shoving stuff out of the way? I mean, I've heard you say that it's impossible. We have gone so long without a major deep impact that the odds.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
That's right.
So God's in control of that. He's going to hit it. He said he's going to do it in Revelation 8:8. And it's going to happen, but when it's his timing, we can't nudge him or,
That's right. I look at things like Fukushima. Why did Fukushima not melt down for real? Why didn't this power plant in Ukraine? What's going on? What's preserving it? What's allowing it to stay operational when they have absolutely destroyed most of the pumps and one is working and they won't let the fire truck come in and put out the fire? So we know that the Lord is at work, but I think a lot of people have an issue believing that still.
Right.
I really do.
Yeah.
But so when the real things come, because we haven't seen real things, we haven't seen real war, but we're about to. And people really don't understand the concept of weapons that are out there and just what it will turn into. What we see with Macron, by the way, with NATO, Pastor Paul, they're going to usher in what they're going to usher in. They're going to do it by force. They don't have time to wait. I keep hearing this over and over again.
What are they
People are saying, this is what leaders are saying.
What are they going to usher in?
It's taking too long.
What's Macron going to do? You think he's going to usher in an attack on Russia?
Oh, no. This is something bigger, Pastor Paul. Look what they have in the background. And number one, they're going to do away with cash. You can.
Okay, are they going to usher in the New World Order? Are they going to usher in
They're going to finish it. They say it's already installed, and Putin specifically said he's not going for that.
No,
he's not. Because he's not in it. He's not a benefactor of it.
No, he's not.
So he didn't like it, so he's not going for it. He kicked everything that they were trying to offer him out. That offended them, and here we are. This situation, but they're going to usher this in. They're going to force it in with any excuse. These guys are going to usher this in. They've already set up the systems to have that implemented. COVID couldn't do it, right? In other words, they take anything they can and they propagandize whatever they can. And these are true events, but they propaganda. Coronavirus was real, but they propagandized. Caused people to fight. The Ukrainian war is real, but it's propagandized. You don't know what to trust, what's real and what's not real, but people are dying, out there.
Yeah, we know people are dying.
It's real conflict. It's a very real conflict. When they propagandize, they maximize the emotional effect until people start saying, do this and do that in agreement with what they really want to do. And that's precisely what folks are doing. I mean, exactly. You would think that they would want everybody to root for NATO, correct?
Right.
Wrong. That's not what they want.
No, it's been unbelievable. I can't believe the people who have said to me, Putin's a good guy. It doesn't matter how many people he kills. He's doing the Lord's work. I mean, I've got this kind of emails, and I'm thinking, whoa.
Well, that's what people believe because they're watching. Where do they? You know what? Here's a question: where do people get that from? I'll tell you what they get it from. Putin has been quiet for many years.
Yeah,
he's been in the shadowing compliance with NATO for a long time. Right? He has not publicized his operations within Russia. He was the golden boy of the 2000 era. He turned Russia around. The problem was when the stories came out as to what he was really doing, it was our news that said, no, don't run that story again. They would retract stories, they would pull stories, they would do this, they would do that, right?
They kept,
so what I often tell people,
they were hiding
I tell
what
people
he
this
was
though,
doing.
Pastor Paul.
Yeah.
If a Christian is a sinner saved by grace, right?
Right.
Their life is a process by which they are perfected spiritually by God's decree, not by man's decree. So when we're dealing with flesh, you have these men out there who are in charge of countries who have special skill sets in the world. That does not equate to anything in the kingdom of God, though, right?
Right.
It doesn't make them holy because they're better than the other tyrant.
No.
Take note, no apostle of the living God, no child of the living God, knowingly, right?
Right.
Who is matured in that process will take the life of another for a greedy reason.
No.
They're just not going to do it.
No.
When you start doing things and death is the result, I tell people all the time, just about everybody lies. But if you lie and it kills another person, that's a death.
That's the blood. That's innocent blood on your hands.
That's right. That's right. And Putin, he will lie in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
but
well,
so was
yeah.
the Ukrainian president.
Yeah, I know.
He was an actor. Everybody started to see this.
I know his story. The bottom
the
line
issue
is this is why we can't keep propping up people like
That's
leaders.
right.
We got to quit
That's
that.
right.
God,
That's right.
Jesus
Because
is the only one you can
the
count on.
Antichrist the same way, Pastor.
Right.
The Antichrist is going to be right here on earth. They're going to say, no, he's not the Antichrist.
Yeah, and he's
a
going to
good
be.
guy. That's what the Bible says.
I know, you're right.
They're going to accept this guy.
They are.
And that's a tragedy.
They're
Because
going to
believe
accept
me,
the Antichrist and turn on you and me. They will accept the
many of them-
Antichrist and turn on God-fearing men and women of God. They will.
They will. I would say many people, there are a lot of people right now that wear the mark on their sleeve right now. They
Yeah.
do.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Well, Mike, hey, wow. One question is, and Jeffrey's coming right now to get ready. I'm going to ask you a question because they're
Yes, sir.
badgering me. Is Putin the man in the coffin in your dream?
I can't say it. I cannot. Pastor, that would ignite. Do you know what that would ignite?
I know.
Right?
You can't say
I
it.
can't. I'll say this, though. No one's going to miss the coffin, number one. But it's not a good thing. When it happens, it ain't in this dream, when that happened, everything went upside down. Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. It was a brief moment of like a silence right there when the coffin was being shown, and everything was upside down from there on out. So it's not a good thing. It is not a good thing.
No, I have a bad feeling about it. Well, all right. I appreciate your honesty, and I'm glad you're withholding that information. I'm not going to ask you again. I don't care how many. I don't care if 10,000 people want me to. I'm not asking you again. We'll know when it happens.
We will, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know what? I pray. I've never seen that before. That's why it's so bothersome to me.
I
I've
know.
never seen a person's face so clear in a dream. Period. In a coffin. No, I've never seen that before.
Should we worry about Israel right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
We didn't get to talk about Israel.
No, we
Yes.
didn't.
They're helping out. Ukrainians right now. They've
Yeah.
helped out more Ukrainians than anybody else, and they're shuttling aircraft over there to get the refugees. Right.
Wow. Yes, they
and
are.
it's they're doing aid. But Putin has already said this morning. He already said something this morning that the relationship that they have, right, the strength of it or the weakness of it is yet to be determined. That's what he said.
He said
It's yet
that
to be
about
determined.
Israel. He said that about Israel.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So he's already changing. Something is changing here.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even address Turkey. Do you know that?
No, I
He
didn't
would
know
not.
that.
He would not address it. So yeah, there's
He's
some,
holding
there's some
holding
anger.
the cards close to his vest, isn't he?
Oh yes. But Pastor, you know what, that dream you had, I didn't get a chance to listen to it yet, but I believe the Lord showed you something of importance for everybody. I do believe that.
Thank you. Yeah, it is important. I'll share it with you next Thursday night. I'll share it with you, or maybe even on. I'll tell you what. I'll share it with you Saturday when we film Climate Chaos. Your webinar, your part of the webinar. I'll share it with you, and you can expound on it right for the webinar.
Will do.
All right. Appreciate it, Mike, very much for coming and being with us tonight, as always. Thank you for standing on the truth, preaching the gospel.
God bless you, Pastor Paul. Folks, hang in there. The Lord has us.
Amen to that. Amen.
He's got us.
God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless you, Pastor Paul.
Run, folks.